Welcome to the Grand Theft World podcast, hosted and sponsored by the fine folks over at grandtheftworld.com who support us with a monthly membership so we can get the news to you every week. We're going to smash it into some historical views, some evidence, and some other things going on. We have, just like last week, we had some technical challenges getting off the ground tonight. But as long as we clear the trees, we're going to have a nice flight. There's a lot of news to cover in this past week. We have stories like...
Investigative journalist Li Fong wrote yesterday, Epstein sent many rambling emails suggesting projects with Bill Gates. Asked to prep presentations for new Gates-backed foundation, $100 million minimum investment expanding on exchanging prior Gates-related interests like vaccines and maternal care. In one of those emails from February 25th, 2011, Epstein reportedly wrote, Gates guy here today, no reporters, I took care of that. Stay calm and focused. We need to speak. I am staying until very late tonight. Seeing Gates read donor on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Wednesday set aside for 2-3 hours to discuss exactly this.
This comes as more information on Epstein's dealings are coming to light amid J.P. Morgan's fresh accusations over ties to the accused sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, so these are, filings from this J.P. Morgan Virgin Islands lawsuit. So just more and more emails from J.P. Morgan officials, Epstein talking about it, just all the influential, important people with lots of money that Epstein was connecting to government officials at the island, to the bank as well. His ongoing kind of relationship with Gates, which is, these messages to Gates people are 2011. So that's after he's already a known sex offender. He's been convicted. He got his house arrest or whatever kind of deal he got for sexual misconduct with underage girls. So you can't say, oh, I didn't know. It was known. It was known by then. There's some joking about Miley Cyrus, who at the time of this is 15. She's a Disney star at the time. So that's again, a clear inclination of an awareness of exactly the kind of thing Epstein goes for. It's disgusting.
Yeah. I think
very disgusting.
It's a bit of a lens into what the world is like for bankers in America at the very high level. The emails that Li Fong posted to Twitter, you have one from a Mary Erdoes at jpmorgan.com official email to an unknown person saying, obviously they're at a party. This is, really late at night. The first email is about 8:30. This has turned into a cheesy broker fest. Totally not cool. The only cool people here are at Glenn's table. Same as bat mitzvah. So maybe they've known each other for some time. The response is at 1:20 a.m. Epstein there with Miley Cyrus. And so this is like official J.P. Morgan emails where this exchange is happening. Was Epstein actually there with Miley Cyrus? We don't know. But the fact that they made the joke shows that these bankers on their J.P. Morgan emails are comfortable joking about the billionaire being out with young girls.
They were comfortable joking about a lot of really sketchy stuff. We've read these emails in the past talking about who's your favorite Disney princess. It suggests again a deep familiarity with the kind of bad and illegal stuff that Jeffrey Epstein was interested in and had already been convicted for. Would eventually be arrested for again.
Former President Donald Trump indicted.
Congress, if you will, please investigate the political witch hunts against me currently being brought by the corrupt DOJ and FBI, who are totally out of control. They don't go after Biden with all of his corruption, the most corrupt president in history, but they keep coming after me from the day I came down the escalator, all failures. This continuing saga is retribution against me for winning and, even more importantly to them, election interference regarding the 2024 presidential election. It will be their updated form of rigging our most important election. Look at the polls. They can't beat me, MAGA, Make America Great Again, at the ballot box. The only way they can win is to cheat, and they cheat better than anybody has ever seen anybody cheat. Stop them now. Save our country. Make America great again.
Alongside that, you've got the dissolution, the dissolving of the plea deal with his son, Hunter Biden, because the judge found out there was some evidence that wasn't being put in front of him, that they were cutting a deal outside of his purview. The judge didn't like that. And we're going to see if there's new developments where justice will actually happen.
Yesterday, it all came crashing down for Hunter Biden. His sweetheart deal, which tried to sneak in broad immunities, was struck down by Judge Noreika. And right now, you've got people on the right praising the judge, saying, good job sniffing this one out. Meanwhile, you've got people on the left saying the judge is trying to protect Hunter Biden from a Donald Trump vengeance or revenge. Interesting. The story is this. Yesterday, Hunter Biden was supposed to plead guilty. I talked about it in the morning, but by the afternoon, the plea deal had fallen apart. They had said maybe it's going to come back. They're negotiating, and then it's been put on hold. What happens here is downright shocking. We got transcripts from the courtroom, and it's crazier than we know. Basically, what happened was the prosecution hid immunity provisions in a deferment program, effectively behind the plea agreement. I'm not a lawyer, so it's harder for me to explain. I'm a lawyer. Actually, I don't know if a lawyer could explain it better because they might use jargon. But the idea is they say, hey, here are these things you're pleading guilty to in terms of taxes. You read through it and it's kind of like, oh, okay, that's fine. Then there's this deferment program on the gun issue. But within it were deep and broad provisions for immunity, which could ultimately make Hunter Biden immune to everything. Now, I find it funny that the left is arguing the judge is trying to protect Hunter Biden from Trump when the judge asked about FARA violations and whether or not there was an ongoing investigation. I got to break this down for you. I got to read. I'll read to you what some of these lawyers are saying. But this is the story we have from Newsweek. Hunter Biden judge trying to protect him from Donald Trump, according to this attorney. I find it absolutely laughable. But the scandal is deeper than that because we did talk about this yesterday. Take a look at this. Judge says Hunter Biden legal team apparently misrepresented identity to court clerk. Yeah, this was yesterday morning. Apparently the scandal gets crazier. They were trying to get negative information, emotion, removed by pretending to be Republicans on the Ways and Means Committee, I believe. This is a crazy story.
Or will he be like a Sam Bankman-Fried and get to go scot-free? Because that's our next story this week. Samuel Bankman-Fried stole billions of dollars from people, and they found him completely not liable for that. He's not guilty. He's going to walk free. So Sam Bankman-Fried can steal $10 billion, but and go free. And Ross Ulbricht, who creates a website, he gets a double life sentence, $200 million fine, and a whole bunch of other things because of a political philosophy. He's a political prisoner in this country. That is something we allow. We don't allow people like Samuel Bankman-Fried to be investigated to see where all that money had to do with funding of people who might have overthrown an election, who admitted overthrowing an election. You'd have a lot of financial trails. It's very inconvenient for them. So they got to let Sam Bankman-Fried go. He gets a get out of jail card free this week, just like maybe the Hunter Biden will as well.
FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried will no longer face a campaign finance charge at an October criminal trial. The reason, it's a little unclear, but apparently the Bahamian authorities, so he was extradited from the Bahamas, and they're claiming that on the indictment, on the extradition request, this was not listed, that campaign finance charges were not listed. And so that is what he's not. So his lawyers argued that he shouldn't be facing charges for campaign finance. And it looks like that ended up being dropped. So a little bit murky on that. Doesn't seem to make total sense, because it seems to me that if you extradite a criminal and they've committed crimes, once you get them on your soil, you should be able to charge them with more crimes if you discover more crimes. It shouldn't just be like, well, we'll only charge you with the crimes we discovered while you were away. And then once you get here and we find out, oh, you murdered somebody, oh, well, we didn't extradite you for that, so I guess we can't charge you for that. I'm a little unclear with that, but this is what they're saying at this point as to why he is not going to be, why they're not going to be pursuing campaign finance crimes in this upcoming October trial. And they say that they're trying to keep with U.S. treaty obligations to the Bahamas. So Sam Bankman-Fried is the young, I think he's 30, 31 years old, FTX founder, crypto guru, rose to, shot up in prominence. He ended up being one of the largest political donors in American politics. So young guy, crypto world, suddenly he's giving loads of cash, primarily to Democrats. Now, I do want to mention that even though he is not going to be facing campaign finance charges, he does still face 7 counts of defrauding or conspiring to defraud customers, investors, and lenders. He's also currently, at this point, he's in house arrest. That is being charged. That is being challenged. The judge is thinking about it. But right now he is confined to his parents' Palo Alto, California home as part of a $250 million bail package. And they've asked the judge to revoke this, but we're going to see, because they claim that he has extensive contact with the news media and that this is affecting the jury pool. His lawyers are denying this. And so the judge has imposed a gag order until they decide on the issue of whether or not he can remain in his parents' home. So that's where he's at right now. He's still under house arrest. He's still facing charges. They're just dropping this campaign finance charge against him. But that's an interesting one, right? Because his primary donors were Democrats. So the big question is, who's protecting him? Are they protecting him? Are they protecting themselves? Lots of questions here. So first of all, what were these campaign charges that are now dropped? Well, they claim that he used tens of millions of dollars in FTX funds to illegally make more than 300 political donations. And according to the indictment, the contributions were unlawful because they were made with corporate funds, or they were made in the name of a straw donor. So a straw donor is this person you're giving them the money and it's going under their name because maybe you've already hit the maximum. And so you want to give money to somebody else to give so that the maximum, then they can give more. The filing says, quote, in dozens of instances, Bankman-Fried's use of straw donors allowed him to evade contribution limits on individual donations to candidates to whom he already donated. These contributions were disguised to look like they were coming from wealthy co-conspirators, when in fact the contributions were funded by Alameda Research with stolen customer money. In total, between in or about the fall of 2021 and November of 2022, Bankman-Fried and 2 FTX executives who served as straw donors as part of his scheme collectively made millions of dollars in contributions, including in hard money contributions to federal candidates from both major political parties. In dozens of instances, Bankman-Fried's use of straw donors allowed him to evade contribution limits on individual donations to candidates to whom he had already donated. So those are the those were the charges that are no longer there against Sam Bankman-Fried. He allegedly enlisted at one point a political consultant to ask one of the FTX executives to make a donation in their name because he said, quote, you being the center-left face of our spending will mean you give to a lot of woke shit for transactional purposes. And even though the executive was uncomfortable about making the donation in his name, he agreed because he said that there was no one trusted at FTX who was bi or gay and in a position to make the contribution. That was all according to the indictment. So who did he give to? That's the big question. Well, according to the Center for Responsive Politics, during the most recent election cycle, campaign donations from the crypto world exceeded those of the defense and auto industries combined. So think about that. More money came from the crypto world. Now, this is really interesting because what we've seen with Operation Choke Point 2.0 recently that I've been covering on this show, where they've been shutting down banks that are banking the crypto community, and they're trying to basically, it looks like a concerted effort to go after the crypto community and to basically get rid of them and not allow them to actually function. And that's odd, right? It's odd that they're going after, predominantly Democrats going after the crypto community when FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, and the crypto community combined gave more in political campaign donations than the defense and auto industries combined. Normally, when you give a lot of money like that, they start to work in your favor, right? They start to make legislation in your favor, and that is clearly not what happened. But maybe there was something else at play, and we'll get to that once we find out who he contributed to. Because I do believe there was a big actual conspiracy behind all of this. I, once again, put on my conspiracy theory hat, call me conspiracy theorist, whatever. SBF contributed more than $70 million to election campaigns in less than 18 months. So very rapidly gave a lot of money. He personally gave at least $40 million to politicians and political action committees ahead of the 2022 midterm elections, mostly to Democrats and liberal-leaning groups, making him the second overall top donor to Democrats, only behind George Soros.
Another story this week that came up is kamikazes, where the divine wind sacrificing themselves. In World War II, you'd have Japanese pilots. They would, fly into an aircraft carrier in the hope of scuttling a bigger target. Well, we have new kamikaze type of activities these days. It has to do with the Israelis making kamikaze drones, suicide drones, and flying them into Palestinian homes and blowing them up. Now, this is something that I don't think we should hate anybody on this planet bad enough to be sending suicide drones into their house. America didn't like it when alleged suicide guys flew into some buildings. I think it's an ominous trend that says as long as we're going to allow slavery in some places, it's going to proliferate all over the place. And the precedents that are set over there, they're coming to a New World Order town near you. They're going to use the same type of surveillance. This track trace database society does not end with them just hitting keys on keyboards. It ends with robots and drones.
So we know that somehow Israel, the idea of Israel, has turned into they're the oppressors that they used to be fleeing. So they've been oppressing the Palestinian people like crazy, and so they're in control of the whole thing. And it's the Gaza Strip's an open air prison. It's horrible. They shoot people just outright. It's not good. And here it is. This isn't a parody. This is a promotion video for a suicide drone capable of entering Palestinian homes undetected.
Oh.
And it's made by Israel's largest weapons firm. And the drone also speaks bad Arabic. Trying to make jokes here, folks. This is hard stuff. Here we go.
Elbit Systems presents Lanius Search and Attack in One. New, innovative, autonomous, lethal solution. Lanius is equipped with AI technologies that allows navigation to building, scanning the building to identify openings, scanning and mapping, object avoidance, enemy detection and classification, target incrimination by human and lethality. The system indemnifies blocked openings and can perform ad hoc lethal ambush.
This is real. This is real.
Lanius, search and attack in one.
Search and attack in one. So I guess it's official. Israel is the underdog.
Huh.
Also, speaking of things flying around in the air, we have had a lot of UFO disclosure hearings, evidence being released. We're going to look into whether or not we need to worry about these things, or is it just interesting to watch these psyops come out real life, like real time, so you can study them. We're going to look at some of this alleged footage of extraterrestrial, I'm putting air quotes around all this stuff because it's all a bunch of mumbo jumbo. We're going to take a look at it because it's part of the week's news. And what is being done with this is you're avoiding accountability for people who have actually been running these black projects, these off the books projects that develop a space race technology gap. And they're going to scare people away with, little green men from Mars type of story, like they've been doing for 70 years to create that technology gap in the first place.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
At one point, you had said that there has been harmful activity or aggressive activity. Has any of the activity been aggressive, been hostile in your reports?
I know of multiple colleagues of mine that got physically injured, and the activity. And I got
by UAPs or by people within the federal government?
Both.
Okay, so there has been activity by alien or non-human technology and or beings that has caused harm to humans.
I can't get into the specifics in an open environment, but at least the activity that I personally witnessed, and I have to be very careful here because they tell you never to acknowledge tradecraft, right? So what I personally witnessed myself and my wife was very disturbing.
Has the U.S. government become aware of actual evidence of extraterrestrial, otherwise unexplained forms of intelligence? And if so, when do you think this first occurred?
I like to use the term non-human. I don't like to denote origin. Keeps the aperture open, both scientifically. Right. Certainly, like I've discussed publicly previously in 1930. It was very brutal and very unfortunate, some of the tactics they used to hurt me both professionally and personally, to be quite frank. Yeah.
It's very unfortunate. As they say, when you're over the target, that's when they do the most firing at you. Do you have any personal knowledge of people who have been harmed or injured in efforts to cover up or conceal these extraterrestrial technology?
Yes. Personally.
Have anyone been murdered that you would think, that you know of or have heard of, I guess?
I have to be careful asking that question. I directed people with that knowledge to the appropriate authorities.
In the last couple of years, have you had incidences that have caused you to be in fear for your life for addressing these issues?
Yes, personally.
So we're going to get into those stories plus much, much more. But before we can do that, let's go to Luke Brodowski of wearechange.org and thebestpoliticalshirts.com and get his report summarizing his view of this week in Grand Theft World history.
One of the best ways to drain people's energy nowadays is via the internet. This woman is an astrophysicist. Actually, this is not how space works. Read a book. Now I just wait for the comments to come in. Hey, can you mansplain any louder? Yeah, sure. These are all different accounts that I have set up. The energy you get this way isn't quite as pure, but if you do enough of it, it'll fill you up. Shanghai sucked. Where was the Chinatown? Jason Mraz is just too weird for me. Jesus actually hates horses. Childhood obesity, LMFO. When they call you a dumbass, you know you've got them. They called me a dumbass. Women are getting too tall. Yeah. You can drain their energy via social media without having to even be near them. That is racist. You're correct. It is. Oh, yeah. 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 Oh, they hate me.
It's surprisingly simple to get total strangers completely furious with you.
They should get a life.
If you think that guy is bad, imagine what the government sock puppet fake bot accounts are doing right now.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come on.